Hello, everybody. Just doing a little instant reaction here to a couple of these Celtics trades that we saw just go down. My name is Kels, and obviously last night we saw the Celtics trade Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons. I thought that was a pretty good deal for them if they were going to unload Jrue Holiday. I thought that made sense for them. Anthony Simons is one of the best young players in the league in terms of most underrated guys who we've seen. He can really score the basketball. Career high is 45 points. He's gone off for a lot of points a lot of times for Portland, and I think one of the more underrated players, young players that we've seen. A lot of people may not have heard of him, and I thought if they were going to get rid of Jrue Holiday, certainly something that, as we'll talk about in a second, the second apron kind of made them do. I thought it was something that was a good return for them, getting Simons back. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, but so he could end up making bank next season, but he's going to play really well for the Celtics, and they can re-sign him. Be a good move to re-sign him now if they possibly could, but I know he's going to want to go into free agency next season. So I think you take a look at that. He could also provide some offense off the bench, certainly some insurance for when Jason Tatum is out. Jaylen Brown's going to obviously pick up a lot of that slack, and I think Simons can be a guy that can kind of take over a little bit. It's not as much of a me and I go, you go situation as it was with Tatum and Brown. I think Simons will kind of hang out around the perimeter a little bit more. Do a little bit more that way. But I think when you look at it, that was a good trade by Brad Stevens. Today, though, they didn't quite get as much in return when I look at what they got. Just now, trade just announced, Shams reporting as Kristaps Porzingis going for a second or Kristaps Porzingis going to the Atlanta Hawks along with a second-round pick in exchange for George Niang to the Seas and a second-round pick in that deal. Brooklyn also getting Terrence Mann and Atlanta's number 22 pick overall. So I think when you look at that trade, I don't think it's as good of a return. I know it's just a salary dump here. Porzingis for Niang. I think Niang is a good shooter. I think he can add a little bit when you take a look at the Celtics offense. He's going to be another guy that's kind of a 3-and-D guy, going to be standing in the corner. Simons is a guy that's more explosive, has a little more potential there, and I think has a chance to really turn into something. I thought that was a really good kind of a steal there that Brad Stevens made. But I think overall, more generally, the point here is that the second apron is kind of killing things in the NBA. I think when you look at free agency, I don't like this situation. I know that the new CBA includes the second apron, and it's basically like a hard cap, and the reason it was put in is because the owners did not want to cede all this power to the players. They had Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and these guys having all this power in the past years, past decade or so, to create super teams, to go to the destinations that they wanted to. And when you look at it, I think that the owners got sick of that. I think they wanted a more NFL-style model where there's more parity, and we've seen it pay off. We saw it this year in the playoffs. We saw the Thunder obviously win the championship, Oklahoma City and Indiana in the finals, and we saw more parity and more upsets than we've ever seen before in the playoffs. I think it's something that it's a little bit different. I think some fans prefer the super teams. It was blockbuster when you had some of those teams, the Nets with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving and company, James Harden. I thought it was cool a little bit on some of those situations. I thought it was fun to watch, even KD with the Warriors, which was a little ridiculous, obviously. But LeBron kind of started that whole thing when he went to Miami, obviously. So when you look at it, I think that was a fun era in the NBA, and it was fun for a lot of fans, and maybe more fun for the casual fans, as you saw, them knowing stars and understanding star power and the names and them getting to the finals this year. Obviously, the casual fan obviously did not care, but I think it's kind of better for the diehard basketball fans when you take a look at there's more parity. Your team can win. Now, if you're in a small market like Indiana, if you're in a market like even Sacramento or something like that, you can look forward to potentially doing something. And Oklahoma City is a special case because Sam Presti is a ridiculous general manager, and he's made some moves that are just brilliant in creating a situation there where they can win multiple championships basically out of nothing. He did have some of the capital of Russell Westbrook and KD and, of course, Paul George, but then creating what he did, all the draft picks, all the talent, developing that and paying off. With them being one of the youngest teams of all time to win a championship. Although I do think that it comes with a little bit of an asterisk with what happened with Halliburton, obviously, in the finals and the Achilles tear. But still, the point remains that, he did such a great job at building that team. And that's the one thing with the second apron. I think Oklahoma City might get hurt here, as well as Boston is clearly getting hurt. When you can't afford to keep the team that you've built and put together, that kind of sucks for fans too. When you can't afford to keep players by making brilliant moves and getting a lot of depth and having a lot of depth and quality players, but then having to get rid of them because you can't pay all of them. And then for the Celtics, it was kind of the perfect storm of Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles, them losing to the Knicks in this playoffs, which I still can't believe happened, honestly. But then when you look at Tatum, obviously going to be out for a long time next season, maybe it does make sense to kind of tear down and rebuild. And I think that's what they're thinking. I think that's what Brad Stevens is thinking. And I think when you look at it, that's kind of the move. And obviously Simons is younger, player with a lot of potential, could do some stuff in the future, could become a guy who becomes an all-star. Maybe they keep him, maybe not. And I think they're going to free up a lot of salary. I really hope that it doesn't become just a tear down here for the Celtics. That would be terrible, because they built such a terrific team. Brad Stevens is such a great GM. And to put together what he's been able to do, or president of basketball operations, whatever the title is, certainly I think he's done great in charge of them. And I think making all those moves, I think the Simons move, you could argue, was a steal. Trading away Holiday for what they did, obviously he's a great player, but trading him on his value side. This situation, you would have liked to see, maybe if you're going to make this move, maybe trade Porzingis last season when he was injured in the playoffs, came back, did a great job, was one of the best, most important, most valuable players on the team, certainly in the finals for them. But I think when you looked at it, his value was never going to be higher than it was last season. If you knew you had to get rid of some salary and et cetera in the future, maybe that was the time to move him. But obviously, hindsight 2020, the Celtics were sold this season to new owners. The Grossbecks wanted out, so that's something that they wanted to cash in. And now the new ownership will have all this luxury tax, and they don't want to pay the ridiculous penalties that the second apron puts on you with the luxury tax, et cetera. So it makes sense. I just hope it's not a complete teardown, but I think Celtics fans will have hope in Brad Stevens they trust. And you can't speculate that it's going to be a complete teardown at this point. I think looking at the moves for the future, maybe it makes sense, get rid of Holiday, get rid of Porzingis, and then you don't have to get rid of either Tatum or Brown. I think they should keep those two together. Obviously, championship-winning core, championship-winning duo. Got to keep those two together if you possibly can. I think that is very key for this team, and I think it's one of the things that obviously fans rely on is the fact that knowing that they're going to have their star players there as long as the guys are happy. It's nothing more shakes the fan base up more than an unexpected trade of their superstar that they've loved and maybe that they drafted. We saw that, obviously. Hello, Luka Doncic. That was something that was a big deal there. But I think just another point to make is that it's a little bit reminiscent here of some of the moves that were made, and I think the second apron is playing a bigger role than some fans may understand. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves last offseason trading Karl Anthony Towns, I think that was as a result of the second apron and his contract coming up, not being able to pay maybe him and Anthony Edwards, and so they had to get rid of him. And I thought got a lesser return when you take a look at Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo for him. And so when you look at that, I think that's a situation that affected that. And I think even the Luka Doncic trade, although you could argue that it was orchestrated by the league, obviously no information there. I don't have any inside info. A little suspicious that they got the number one pick with Cooper Flagg coming up. But I think when you look at it, the second apron may have played a role in that as well, may have played a significant role because they would have wanted to get assurances on his health and the situation with his conditioning. Obviously not great, and with a huge contract extension coming up, he thought he was going to get that contract extension, and maybe they didn't want to shell out all that money knowing that. Obviously, I still think it's one of the most ridiculous, worst trades, the worst trade I've ever seen in my life. You got to get a much better return for Luka Doncic, but I think that is the thinking, however flawed it was, and I think it was flawed, especially with how much he meant to the fan base. That was the thinking behind Nico Harrison and company. You can't convince me that the second apron didn't have something to do with that as well. Going to try to do more of these videos. Maybe they have a little bit better of production value. We got not much going on here. We got a nice little green plant in the background, but that's pretty much it. Maybe we'll have some more production value in the future. But thanks for watching. My thoughts here on the NBA offseason. We'll make more of these as the offseason goes on. My name is Kels Dayton, and this was your Roundball Daily Rant. See you next time.